What is going on, guys? It is Blink here, back with a new guide. Now, in this guide, we'll be talking about a few fighting scenarios with good ways of giving yourself the advantage. Anyways, guys, let's get to this guide. So, in this first example, I want to mention a good way of getting a heal off with a better chance of not getting interrupted. There's an opponent up ahead, and he kept spamming my materials, so what I usually do is build myself a little box behind my fort. Why you want to do this is because you add a few extra layers of materials your opponent has to shoot through. Sometimes your opponent won't notice you because he's broken the first wall to your fort, so he doesn't think you're in there. I do this a lot with campfires, although it's super good to do with any sort of healing. Now, I did get pushed, and you might be wondering if you should either fight or get as much healing as possible, and it depends on your health. If you've got even over 50 health with some shields, then I'd recommend fighting it out because the high ground is pretty important. Now, if you've got under 50, then try holding that campfire down as long as you can. You'll probably get pressured hard, so you'll want to either build up or drop yourself down. Just make sure you're building yourself cover. If you drop down below, there are a few things you can do. The first thing you can do is find any weak materials and shoot your opponent down. If you do this, make sure you build yourself up as your opponent's falling. This allows you to get the high ground back as your opponent drops. The next thing you can do is build yourself in a 1x1 and shoot the materials or shoot in a random direction. The point of this is to bait your opponent into dropping down because he thinks you're trying to collapse the structure. This might be a little harder to do with bounce traps around, but it'll usually get your opponent into dropping. After he drops, you want to build yourself up. The whole point of this is to give you a better chance of getting the high ground back. And the last thing you can do is jump pad away or get away by building floors above you as you run. You then want to build yourself a fort before your opponent catches up. This resets the fight and gives you the high ground back. So those were just a few good ways of playing out the situation. So in this next situation, me and this opponent built off, and he ended up getting the high ground. Now I went to go grab it back, and this is where players don't build floors above themselves because they think they'll go unnoticed when trying to build back for that high ground. The same goes for pinching players that are having a giant build war. If you gotta get to the top, double ramp it up. You want to get up there while taking the smallest amount of damage possible, or just none at all. I'll also be making a playground guide on a few solid building tips once the replay feature works again, so be on the lookout for that. Now, in this next example, I want to quickly focus on one thing. So I don't know if this player is any good, but he's adding jumps as he runs. He isn't adding them that often, but that's because the circle's coming in. Now, when you see a player adding jumps, they can potentially be pretty good. If they run without jumping, expect them to be easier to fight off. Jumping is a default thing you have to do when you're mobile. So I tried taking a shot at him and missed. He ended up hitting me, so he might be able to aim, but he ends up building higher than he should have. 3 stories would have been fine, but if you notice players building more than 3 stories when their opponent's still quite ways away, then it should bring your confidence level up in a fight. So try noticing basic mistakes players make to bring up that level of confidence. Now, this tip I want to give you guys is a way of knowing which way the bus went if you've forgotten. This tip was shown to me by Slave, one of the teammates I queue up with, and what you want to do is place your marker at the end of where the battle bus is heading. Keeping your marker there will allow you to easily figure out which way the battle bus traveled by simply tracking back with a straight line. By knowing where the battle bus traveled, it'll allow you to figure out which area of the map most players will be at. You can also use your marker to figure out if your opponent's fort is inside the circle. Say you can't really pinpoint the exact spot your opponent's at, simply place your marker on the safe zone circle and check if your opponent's in behind your marker or in front. Just 2 solid tips on using the marker to your advantage. Well guys, that's it for this guide. Hope it can help some people out, and a like and a sub will be greatly appreciated as it does help me out a lot. Anyways guys, thanks for watching and hope you have a great rest of your day and night, and I'll see you on the next one.